welcome to the Album Nerds Podcast with your hosts, Andy, Todd, and Jude.
Welcome, my children. It is the Album Nerds Podcast. We're getting in touch with the angels this week, but first, I'm Dude. I got Andy and Don with me. How you guys doing?
Well, I thought you were going by the Reverend this week, man.
That would have been really awesome. Thanks for pointing out my failure.
Anytime, buddy.
Donald, what's the word, yo?
Spirit. I'm feeling the spirit. Now I know that Jesus saved me on the day that he forgave me.
All right.
What is this going on?
So here we are.
Face
Three album nerds. Yeah, here we are face to face, a couple of silver spoons. Thank you, Don. Hoping to find we're two of a kind. Yes.
All right.
We're not talking about the 80s hit sitcom starring Ricky Schroeder. We're talking about albums here on the Album Nerds Podcast. We're also going to be answering a question this episode, as well as at the end of the show, we're going to talk about a special episode that we're going to have next week, and we'll give you a few more details when we get to the end here. But this week, it's all about the angels and beautiful singing voices.
That's what I'm talking about!
Right. Well, in medieval Christian theology, there were the seraphim that were the highest choir of the angelic hierarchy, and they are the caretaker of God's throne, and they continuously sing, "Holy, holy, holy."
That'd get a little annoying, wouldn't it?
Sounds like you're in hell, man.
I mean, we're talking eternity here, right? And God would be like, bro, can you throw another word in there? I mean,
mix it up a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
So, indeed, some singers, many that we've talked about on the show before, sound like they are from the heavens. But today, each of us will choose an album from an artist with, I guess, an angelic voice.
Yeah, so this is an odd topic.
Yeah.
Because it's so subjective, right? What's the voice of an angel? So at first, like, my mind immediately went to, like, divas. Mm-hmm. Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, even like Sarah McLachlan, because that
in the arms of
maybe the word angel being in one of her songs was
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about soul singers like Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, Luther Vandross, and then Charlotte Church, the teenage opera singer or whatever from the early 2000s. And then I started thinking about metal singers and rock singers like Dio, and even like Eddie Vedder has a unique voice, but some thought it was so special that it could have come from the heavens. So I listened to a lot of music, a lot of different music that had nothing to do with each other than looking for great vocals. How did you guys do?
Yeah, I was all over the map as well. I first thought it was gospel. I'll mention one gospel record that I came across that I thought was quite excellent by an artist by the name of Sister Rosetta Tharpe. The album is called Gospel Train, came out in the mid-1950s. Plays like really mean electric guitar alongside gospel music, which I thought was a pretty cool combination, especially in 1956. Then I went to soul and R&B, listened to some John Legend, his excellent 2006 record, Once Again. And the thing I almost landed on, and I'm sure you guys are glad I did not, was opera. I listened to a couple.
I like that.
Opera doesn't really have great albums in terms of like traditional album structure.
Right.
But I did listen to a record that was kind of a compilation by an artist or opera singer named Maria Callas. It's called La Divina. Came out in 1992. Pretty mind-blowing singing, but a little hard to get your head around.
Yeah. I mean, I the only reason I would have even approached Charlotte Church is because the name of the album was Voice of an Angel. You know?
Her last name is literally Church.
Right.
It's kind of boastful to call your album that, isn't it?
She was like 12 years old. I doubt she picked the title.
Well, on episode 148, I think that was something like our parents' record cabinet or something. You guys remember that episode?
Of course.
Oh, yes.
Well, I did that Elvis Presley gospel album, How Great Thou Art. And I just wanted to mention again, I love Elvis's voice. My favorite part, actually, of the Baz Luhrmann film from last year was at the end where it's actually real footage of Elvis singing Unchained Melody live. And it's such a moving performance. But for this week, I was flirting with Linda Ronstadt.
Man,
but
you are a tease.
And actually, sort of like a grandpa sort of pick. I had checked out Andy Williams, who I mainly know from like holiday time, listening to his Christmas music. But I did find an interesting album from 1973 called Solitaire. If you get a chance to check that out, I highly recommend it. Also thought about Al Green, Call Me, another excellent album from 1973.
Yeah, Al Green definitely. And he ended up being a gospel singer.
He ended up becoming a reverend, I believe.
Yeah. He found the Lord.
And if loving the Lord is wrong,
I don't want to be right. All right. It's time that we listen to what we chose.
You choose me?
I wonder who we're talking about here, Andy. Was that you?
Give you one guess.
it's hard not to move even when he's doing that. There's no rhythm or anything in the background, but I'm already like strutting. And,
Somehow there is a rhythm, even in those little shrieks.
Good thing this is an auditory medium.
Yes, that's for sure. All right, so if you haven't guessed yet, we're talking about Michael Jackson. We're going to discuss specifically his 1979 record, Off the Wall. Why don't we play a little bit of what I would call the most angelic track on the record? There's a little bit of...
His indecision and cursed pride.
Cursed pride.
Yeah, he could certainly make it more of a nefarious movie villain that way. I like yours, Andy.
All right. So this is the 5th solo studio album for the singer-songwriter from Gary, Indiana. Really his first solo studio record that he created for himself, and that he created the sounds, and with the focus on it not sounding like a Jackson 5 record, which is a kind of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Jackson 5 and that kind of sound they had in the mid-70s there.
Yeah, and they also had changed their name to the Jacksons by that point.
Good point.
They were still recording like that. Can you feel it? You know, they had a presence. Yeah, where it felt like he wasn't being driven by his family's decisions, mostly his dad for this particular record. His new dad, Quincy Jones, took care of that.
Yeah, this is the first record that Quincy produced with Michael. Also the first record for Epic. The album would go on to produce 4 top 10 singles, including the first single, Don't Stop, which went to number 1. The first song that MJ wrote for himself. Okay, so my 3 words to describe this record are, if disco existed in heaven...
Well, that's where it was created, brother.
Obviously. Yeah, this record is from 1979. It definitely has a disco tinge to a lot of the tracks on here. But I didn't find that too distracting. I think the quality is so high throughout. It makes up for whatever shortcomings you might feel are associated with disco. Yeah, I feel like I talked a lot. Why don't we play another cut from the record? Here's a little bit of the title track, Off the Wall.
And just enjoy yourself. Groove. Let the medicine, the music get to you.
Yeah, that song spoke to me. I think this past week driving home from work, leaving the 9 to 5 up on the shelf, and as I'm grooving my way home. So that song was written by English songwriter Rod Temperton, one of 3 on the album that he wrote. The song was first offered to Karen Carpenter because she was recording a solo album around this time. But it seems, like a signature Michael song at this point, and it's all about getting over troubles. So the 3 words I chose for the album, I stole from Stephen Holding of Rolling Stone magazine. He used the term disco-fied post-Motown. I think that's a good way to put it. To me, it kind of feels like the grand finale of the 70s. So this is sort of the end of disco. I mean, what were there 3 years, 4 years between this and Thriller? And the difference in sound is significant. That a lot of that disco-y sound is gone by 1980, 82, 83.
Yeah. Yeah, 82 is when that album came out. End of 82. I feel like PYT from Thriller could have been on this album. It had that.
Yeah, that's true.
This kind of energy that exists here. That stands for Pretty Young Thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout the show, if I say "Pretty Young Things," repeat after me. You have to repeat whatever I say. Okay.
Mama say, Mama sama makusa. Yeah, and I mean, great album. Just, I mean, you've got the disco-y, dancey tracks, and then you've got the ballad thrown in there and a couple of quieter songs. Really just showing off his unique vocal talent. And again, as we're exploring voices, you find that it's not just the tone of the voice. It's not just, the pitch or, singing on key. It's the vocal control and being able to use it to emote, to be quieter and to move closer to the mic and to back up. I think your all-time great vocalists, going back to like Sinatra, really, turn, the recorded voice into an instrument. And, Michael's just, amazing. And he uses falsetto in a way that's not distracting or obnoxious.
Well, that's how he speaks too. The thing, I think, I don't know if on some of the Jackson 5 or Jackson's albums he did a lot of this, but the Working Day and Night song, there's a lot of that stuff going on, the mouth sound stuff that he continued to build on through future albums to the point where some of the songs on the later albums were based completely on his mouth beat stuff that he would do underneath as part of the rhythm section. So I think that was kind of the beginning of that too.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think that was him. I mean, I'm sure he was down with the sickness, but.
Yeah, I just go back to what Don was saying about his voice and his control. I think is really the thing that impressed me on this record. He's able to sustain notes that seemingly should not be able to sustain, like at the end of like a very long section. And he just holds them out beautifully. And his range too is also very impressive here. Like at times his voice sounds very sparse and frail, and like on that first track we played there, he almost sounds like starts to cry at the end of the track, and his voice cracks a little bit.
Vulnerable.
They claim that's real, but I don't know. I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I saw him do that on stage a few times too. I don't know. He's a good actor.
That song, it's not on this album, but that song Ben that was about the little rat. That one, I can't even hear that song and without crying.
Not get choked up.
That was one of his first solo ventures, but I think of the song Rats by Pearl Jam because Eddie Vedder says the Ben, the two of us, like he uses the lines from it. So I always thought that was pretty badass.
Tie back to Pearl Jam somehow.
Of course.
Any Pink Floyd references you want to get in here, Dan?
Hey, my childhood obsession of Michael Jackson when I was in elementary school, 10 years later, it was Pearl Jam.
And actually, speaking of Pink Floyd, the Off the Wall and the Wall came out in the same year, so they were sort of battling it out.
Oh, really? The Battle of the Walls. Donald Trump.
And changed. Like, I was like, whoa, who's this guy? And my dad was like, hey, that kid isn't annoying anymore. He's awesome. So the three words I used to describe the album are calm before the storm. A few years later, Thriller comes out. Michael Jackson becomes this otherworldly hype machine. The National Enquirer rumor mill starts. And part of what I like about this album is the joy and the humanity. And he hadn't become disconnected with the world the way he became later. Even the album cover, I mean, it looks like just a natural smile. It's nice to see him before the plastic surgeries and stuff. It's nice. It could just be he was really good at posing after doing it since he was 9 years old or whatever. But
he looks really happy on the cover. It's almost weird to see him look that way.
I think the music was a way to be a different person. The stage person, the person that goes out dancing, the person that's interacting with humans regularly when really he was treated differently since he was a little kid. So I think the music in this album in particular was an escape from that. And you can hear it. You can hear it. It's soaring. Every song, there's angelic moments where it's just about joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well said.
I think I don't think it's his best album, but there's something unique and special about it in the discography.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would call this among my favorites of his. Probably, I would agree, maybe it's not his best, but it does show his range of styles, I think, nicely. And you kind of get a good sense of who he was as an artist. The only critique I could come up with for the record was it's a little bit front heavy. I think you'd probably say it's about all of MJ's records, or even just pop in general. Usually pretty front loaded with singles. Back end sometimes is a little bit loose. I think the back end here is pretty tight. It's a good back end, but
That's from all that moonwalking.
That's right.
Gets those glutes tight.
But yeah, I'm gonna nominate this for the Ain't House. I think it's a pretty awesome pop rock record. So, what do you guys think?
I'm going to say yes. Just had to put a little pregnant pause there to build suspense.
It's all in my hands. It's all in my hands.
Wow.
Pretty good.
Angelic.
It's all up to you, dude. What do you think, man?
I feel like this is a foundational piece in his becoming the king of pop that he named himself, which I find annoying. I think I'm going to have to say no, because I think this was just a staging ground for what came next. Like it's a uplifting, cute record, but
Oh my God.
I don't think it showcases what he was capable of. On Thriller, he incorporated rock and a heavier R&B sound and did the songs like this. There was more variety. I feel like this was kind of one flavor, which was really fun, but
Wow.
One flavor? Okay.
yeah, like disco, lighthearted. The whole thing kind of feels the same. I don't feel differently during many of the songs.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how many entries an artist can have in the Album Nerds Hall of Fame, but
Well,
There's no limit.
if I had to choose a Michael Jackson record, this would not be the one.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Feels like a revenge no.
I don't know. I hate to get MJ caught up in our own personal beef here, dude, but we'll leave it up to the fans. So you can go to albumnerds.com/Discord and our website, albumnerds.com, and cast your vote. See if you get off the wall into the Ainhoffs.
Excuse me. I'd like to ask you a few questions.
You guessed it. It's the time on the show when we ask ourselves a question. We're talking about voices of angels today. So what's your favorite angel-based thing? Toilet paper? Angel Soft. TV shows? Movies? Songs?
Dust.
Dust.
That could also be the name of an album. By Faith No More. Discuss. Favorite angel things.
The first thing I thought of was Angels and Demons, the book by Dan Brown and movie.
That's the Da
Vinci Code guy.
stuff, right?
Yeah, sequel to that. Didn't care for that too much though. Then I thought of Angels in the Outfield, which I thought was...
Did you like that as a kid?
I did like it as a kid, and then I watched it like maybe 15 years ago, and I thought it was just terrible. Terrible schlock. Then I thought of the Keanu Reeves movie, Constantine, which I feel like is a very underrated movie, though I haven't seen it in a while. But I remember really liking that when that came out. Do you guys remember that film at all?
Yeah, it was cool. It was based on a DC comic book character, I think.
Is it a comic?
I believe so. And there was a show about Constantine, different actor, of course, that I think failed. But yeah, I believe that's a DC comic book character. But yeah, I mean that fits in just because is he part angel or something?
I think he is. Yeah, he's like hunting demons.
Those damn demons.
Freaking demons. Yeah.
Yeah, well, everyone else got to wear an orange vest, so Constantine knows who not to kill.
How about you, Don?
Well, I thought of a lot of things. First, I mean, you mentioned Angels in the Outfield, so I just thought of the Los Angeles Angels or Anaheim Angels or California Angels, all the names they've been. But right now, I mean, they're not my favorite team, but they have Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, and I just really want those guys to make the postseason because they haven't yet. But I thought of It's a Wonderful Life, which of course has the angel Clarence who needs to earn his wings to show George Bailey, that It's a Wonderful Life. But actually, I thought of a film. It's called Wings of Desire, a foreign film, German, done by Wim Wenders. Really arty film. Actually has Nick Cave is in it. But do you remember Remember the stupid 90s movie with like Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan, City of Angels? That was like a sort of an American commercial remake of that film.
Oh, and the rise of the Goo Goo Dolls to heights up to the heavens themselves. So,
but yeah, that Wings of Desire film is really something to watch. Check that out.
Check that out.
Yeah, when everything seems to be broken, I just want you to know who I am.
Oh my gosh, dude.
For me, the first thing I thought of was a line from a Black Crowes song, Thorn in My Pride. And it's angels, devils, thorn in my pride.
I thought you were going to say She Talks to Angels. That's like the obvious.
That song's lame. That's the obvious one. Come on. She Talks to Angels. So commercial. After your Goo Goo Dolls tirade, here we go. I would watch so many shows and movies about the supernatural, and I've learned a lot of, cherubim, seraphim, lore about angels and Nephilim, the children of angels and mortals. So I have all this lore in my head whenever I think about angels, from just too many books, movies, and TV shows, like 17 seasons of Supernatural or whatever that are, it's all in my head. And they pulled stuff from Christian beliefs about angels, from Judaism, from all sorts of different religions and lore. So there's so many, there's just a ton of interesting little, I wouldn't say factoids, but theories. Let's say. So what about y'all? Favorite angel-based things? Let us know. albumnerds.com/Discord.
Our dream had come true.
She sleeps in the sand.
She was a folk singer.
Wow. Okay. Well, my pick for a voice of an angel is Judy Collins. And this is the album called Wildflowers, released in October of 1967. Here's a hit song from that record called Both Sides Now.
Both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds, illusions I recall. I really
That plinky guitar or whatever just made me think of the Partridge Family quite a bit.
Boy, here we go.
So Both Sides Now is a song written by Joni Mitchell. Collins recorded it a year before Joni Mitchell did. She also did that with the three Leonard Cohen songs that are on the album. She recorded those before he got around to it.
Come on, Judy. That's not very angelic.
That's how these folk people do it, man. Just passing it around like whatever you might pass around.
So I've always loved that Both Sides Now song. It's, her voice is really beautiful and vulnerable. It's one of the rare occasions where I actually, prefer somebody else's version to the original songwriter. I just think Judy Collins does a beautiful job with it. So this is the sixth studio album by Judy Collins, born Judith Marjorie Collins in 1939 in Seattle, Washington. This is actually her first album to contain originals. She has 3 songs on here that she penned herself. But, as Collins ended up doing in her career, she, brings attention to some up-and-coming songwriters. So you have 2 songs from Joni Mitchell and 3 from Leonard Cohen. She's also, on other records done Randy Newman tracks and Bob Dylan. And that's just, that's typical, I think, of folk albums.
Well, it's the oral tradition, the storytelling, passing things from troubadour to troubadour. Wow, that was beautiful.
So the three words I chose to describe the album are sweet, sour, enunciation. So, her voice is sweet. Some of the songs are sweet, but there's a sourness, there's sadness and some darkness, particularly in those Leonard Cohen songs. And I said enunciation just because, you can hear every word. She's got great diction. Even the French song, I can pick out those phrases in there. So.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear another cut. This is a Leonard Cohen song. Hey, that's no way to say goodbye.
Hey, that's no way to say goodbye.
Yeah, I thought her vocals were really on display there. It sounds angelic, and the way that she's doing the harmonies with herself reminded me like of a richer version of whatever Patricia Rhombus or whatever that lady was we talked about.
Linda
Patricia Rhombus. Wow.
Parallelograms or something.
Yes.
What was her name?
Perhacs?
Yeah, Linda Perhacs.
Oh, okay. That's what I said.
Jeez.
Yeah. So the three words I used to describe this album are "Where's the Lute?" As I stated by saying troubadour, and I've been reading some Witcher books too, so I really have that storyteller, folk singy thing in my head, and it's just her voice is so clear, like Don was saying, that storytelling and details and all of that was in that tradition of folk storytelling through song. She really had so much emotion in the way that things were said, and it was so crystal clear that it's like a whole different medium, really, of music. It's unique in that way, like a minstrel of yore. I remember on her 1979 album, they had, and it was in the bargain bin at this discount store chain that used to be in my town when I was a little kid, and you could see part of her butt on the back, and I remember staring at that album quite a bit. So
Nice.
That was my main Judy Collins memory, was going to the store with my parents and be like, I'm going to look at the records and knowing right where that one was.
Which record is that?
Googling it. Yeah, so that, I was familiar with the Leonard Cohen version. In fact, the first Leonard Cohen album is one I've been, meaning to do on this show a lot. Yeah, that's another one where she really, makes that song something special. It really becomes beautiful with her voice. Yeah,
it's about the love and loss and saying goodbye to someone you care about, and that's Leonard Cohen, all over the place. But the sadness, the mournfulness in this is something I don't think his voice is capable of. He's capable of the moroseness part of it, but I feel like she was able to hit a couple other colors.
Okay, well let's hear another one. Here, this is La Chanson des Vieux Amants.
Oh.
Man,
really?
I think Andy picked that song just to trip you up, because he always gets stuck with the foreign stuff. He just kicked his ass.
That translates to the song of old lovers.
And that really gets me hankering for some French fries, some French toast.
I think she said Gerard Depardieu in there.
Gerard Depardieu.
Sorry. About Pepe Le Pew in there, I'm pretty sure as well. Yeah. I really like that track. I'm not really sure what it's about. I think what stuck out to me about that song in particular was she's a little bit lower in her range there than she is on the rest of the record. And her voice just sounds very powerful on that song. Like, she really sounds like she could just let loose at any second. So my three words to describe this record are fairly tame, but pretty flowers. Not quite wildflowers, but I did enjoy this record more than I expected to. And like so many of Don's picks, given some time to let it sink in and let it breathe a little bit, it did grow on me.
To water it,
yes.
Give it some sunshine, and let it grow.
Let it grow. I guess my biggest critique, or the thing I found least interesting about it, is on some of the tracks, she really stays up in this very ethereal, which definitely fits the theme, but very high range of her voice. And I just wish she moved around a little bit more it seems like she has a very powerful voice and, obviously a very, excellent singer, but she stays up in this high range a lot, and sometimes I found that to be a little bit mundane or just feel a little bit repetitive to me. But I was very pleasantly surprised by the track Priests, the fourth track, which is it's like this very dark song about, I think someone passing away and kind of honoring them. It almost feels like a funeral dirge or something like that. I really found that track to stand out and be very interesting. If more of the record was like that, I probably would give this like a really high review, but I did overall find this pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, so that Priest track is also one of the Leonard Cohen songs. That's one I'm not sure. I couldn't find a Leonard Cohen recording of it other than a live thing, so I don't know if that actually ends up on a Cohen studio album. But again, I guess what I appreciate about this album the most is, like, even though the arrangements are, it's sort of that classical, style that often accompanies folk records at that time. And her voice is very pretty and clear, but it's not exactly easy listening music, so because of songs like Priests, there is, sort of an edge to it, which I enjoy. Okay. Well, so that was Wildflowers by Judy Collins.
I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
If you're enjoying the show, and we hope you are, do us a solid and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Maybe we made you laugh, or you discovered an album you enjoy. Leaving a review keeps the show going and helps other music fans find us.
Comes down to making out. Whenever possible, put on side 1 of Led Zeppelin 4.
All right, so yeah, Led Zeppelin. Robert Plant, voice of an angel in my book. One of the most ethereal of the rock genre, and certainly set a tone for what kind of vocals were used and acceptable coming up in hard rock and heavy metal. I do believe that his voice was the inspiration for why Rob Halford and other artists were able to have success with that, higher tone and have it be accepted as a manly. So why don't we jump into the most angelic of the songs on this album and the most played, Stairway to Heaven, where we'll get a little taste of the brilliance of this 1971 record. I know that song's been played so many times. I wanted to get a part where he's actually really wailing. So, November 8th, 1971, fourth album, kind of called Led Zeppelin 4. It's untitled. Some people call it Zoso. So Jimmy Page was the producer, which I thought he did an incredible job. He captured what each guy does best. Those guys being Jimmy Page on guitar, Robert Plant on vocals, John Paul Jones on bass and keyboard. I think he also played the mandolin. John Bonham on the drums. And after Led Zeppelin 3, which kind of went in a different direction, I think they were looking to rock hard, and they kick off the album with Black Dog and Rock and Roll, which are just explosive songs.
It's just like slaps you in the face as soon as you put it on.
And then the Battle of Evermore, which gets that mandolin folky thing going like they did on Led Zeppelin 3. And that kind of brings me to the three words I used to describe the album: mystical blues rock folkery. Because they brought those folk elements in. They pumped up the blues rock, and it's like the perfect combination of the first two albums and the third. And they started to reinterpret the blues as opposed to mimic it on this record, in particular on When the Levee Breaks, which is a straight up blues cover. But the way that they recorded the drums in this like old hall with stone walls to get the echo effect, the natural echo effect. If you take the source material and you elevate it to the next level, then that's not copying anymore, which they were being accused of. So it's probably the best rock record of all time. But why don't we jump into another song so you guys can say some things? They better be good. Let's listen to a little bit of Misty Mountain Hop.
I would like to drop in there, dude. Like maybe casually, kind of, this might be the best rock album of all time. before you played the song.
Yeah, well,
But I think you could be right, perhaps. I think I came up with like, it's probably the definitive rock record. Like if you could just have one rock record to summarize them all, perhaps this would be it. Just basically has everything you would want. I mean, you have those two, well, we talked about this already, but we have a good variety of songs. Blues, hard rock, folky stuff, there's some jams that happen throughout. They switch up the pacing nicely throughout the record. You know, and there's some really interesting songs that I think are maybe a little bit underlooked. There's the big hits, obviously. But songs like Misty Mountain Hop that we just played and Four Sticks, I think are really compelling when you listen to them closely. My 3 words, yeah, I guess it's pretty good. This is one of the first records I owned on physical media. Listened to it, I don't know, hundreds of times easily. Yeah, I mean, it's a classic for a reason. I don't really know what the critiques to say about it. It's pretty great.
well, what about like the subject matter of some of the songs, right? Like Misty Mountain Hop was kind of poking a little bit of fun at the hippie way of life, you know? But then also engaging in it. So, yeah, I mean, I think lyrically they got a little less deep into the Tolkien-y type of stuff.
Yeah, it's still here though. But yeah, there's more social commentary, maybe just awareness of their influence on the larger scene at the time. I like the Tolkien stuff personally. I find that they do it in a fairly non-cringy way, which is hard to do. I find like they get deeper meaning out of those songs. I mean, yeah, it's such a great song. Such a great record.
All right, well, why don't we listen to a little bit of Four Sticks?
Yeah, well, that's one of the few tracks that's not in heavy rotation on classic rock radio stations. So it's called Four Sticks, apparently. They're not referring to the 4 members' penises, as I suspect. It's
That's what I thought too, actually.
See, when I thought sticks, I was thinking legs.
Okay.
But no, John Bonham apparently used 4 drumsticks in the song.
At the same time?
I believe so. That's okay. I assume that's what they meant. They said 2 pairs of drumsticks, so I guess maybe 2 in each hand.
I guess. Maybe he's using his feet. Sorry.
Was it Def Leppard?
Yeah, and this, as I often like to do, just celebrate the unusual time signature. So that this track has some 5/8 and 6/8. I still don't know how to count those. I don't know.
I heard somewhere that he was getting very frustrated recording this song, and that out of rage he started doing a drum beat from an old Chuck Berry song, and that's what became rock and roll. They started jamming off of that, and then that song had brought in those piano elements that were kind of Jerry Lee Lewis, and I think that that's why it's been a long time since I rock and rolled, and it's got those sounds in it. But supposedly it's from Bonham being pissed off and jumping into a different drum beat entirely, and it led to another song.
There's also another thing in my breadbasket. There's some synthesizer on this song that John Paul Jones plays. So the 3 words I chose to describe the album are just boring. 4 amazing talents, right? But 4 because it's the 4th album. You know?
Yeah. So you're saying that all 4 of them were talented musicians?
Yes.
In their own right. I'm stroking my beard right now thinking about that.
I mean, I think there are plenty of examples of bands that maybe individually none of them are amazing, at least in terms of musicianship. I think even like the Beatles, in terms of musicianship, you wouldn't say that they are necessarily like the best in their crafts, but these guys, I think all are. You know, I mean, it's incredible to just have, you know, these 4 guys in one group. I'm glad we did this record, because I don't listen to it often, probably just because these songs are so out there and everywhere. So just to listen to the whole album, you know, is really a pleasure. And I think you're right. I mean, it's right. It is kind of the quintessential rock album. It has everything that you want.
So what they were doing, they weren't trying to be the Beatles, which I think is unique to bands at that time. They were trying to just do what was coming out naturally, and they did so here with a plum. Like it's the more I listen to it, probably 30 times over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, I'm convinced it's the best like rock and roll record of all time.
I was actually, so I've been driving around listening to this record, and I stopped to get gas, and rock and roll was playing as I got out of the car, and this other guy pumping gas like, yeah, Zeppelin.
That doesn't happen to you often, does it?
No, like, yeah, Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I think I'm just kind of repeating what you guys said, but I really appreciate, you know, how the album is informed by the blues, but it's not old, you know, they're giving it new life. It's something new. God damn, what a great album.
Yeah, so I'm going to make this easy. I mean, I can't very well say something is the greatest rock record of all time and not nominate it for the Album Nerds Hall of Fame. So here it is. Cast your votes. Andy, I dare you to take revenge on me.
Oh, I love a good dare. But after calling it the definitive rock record of our time, I probably will have to agree with you on this one. I mean, it's classic, dude. It's as classic as classic gets, man. I mean, you wouldn't have classic rock without, this record. Yeah, it really does have everything you want. So, big yes for me.
Well, I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to say no doubt about it. It's a Hall of Fame.
All right, so I'm sure the members of Led Zeppelin have had many accolades over their careers, but this is probably the first true honor that has been bestowed upon them. So welcome, Led Zeppelin 4. Voices of Angels. Beautiful singing voices, and they come in so many different varieties and genres, and I think that's what I learned the most, was that it's not just opera or just Whitney Houston diva stuff. It can come from anywhere. It's just when that voice touches you in your soul and something special is happening, I think you can tell. And that was the point of the exercise.
Would you say you were touched by an angel?
I would. I'm on the highway to heaven now.
I would like to do this theme again, and I'd really like to kind of explore the voice in hip hop. So I remember back when we were listening to the Wu-Tang records, just how much a difference it made, when somebody else was, would start rapping, like you'd have a voice like Old Dirty Bastard that, just sounded so much different from the other members of the group.
Method Man has that very unique, breathy delivery.
Yeah, and Tone Loc.
Yeah.
But I think even in a genre where you're not singing, I think the voice is probably equally as important. So I'd like to try that out in the future.
Yeah, we could do like a whole voice series of like different genres, because I would love to dig into more in gospel and opera if we can figure out a way to get into those very dense, not album friendly genres. I think that would be interesting to dig into some other sides of the voice as well.
I do think the voice of an angel can have different sounds, so you have that Robert Plant voice that kind of paved the way for those metal voices that came later. You've got the Judy Collins kind of folky voice, that actually has kind of gone away. I don't hear a lot of people singing like her anymore. And Michael Jackson, right? And so then you have those smoother R&B voices.
Well, some might say that Robert Plant's voice and then what became of that higher vocal style was when the angels fell and became demons. And that's one to grow on.
I'm your density. I mean, your destiny.
All right, boys and girls, got a special treat for you next week on the show. We'll be looking back on one of our album discussions, in particular talking about the De La Soul record, 3 Feet High and Rising, and I think rectifying some wrongs that were done in the past when we did not nominate that for the Album Nerds Hall of Fame. So tune in next week for that special
Quantum Leap edition.
Okay, there you go. Time travel. A quick reminder, don't forget to vote for Michael Jackson's Off the Wall record. It is on the fence, you could say, right now, in terms of in-house voting. Go to albumnerds.com/discord and albumnerds.com to cast your ballots.
What do you think of Off the Wall? Is it off the hizzy?
Pretty sure it's not.
No. No.
This show is off the hissy, though. Oh my gosh.
Who's your favorite voice of an angel? What else are you listening to? Let us know. Join fellow album nerds on Discord at albumnerds.com/Discord. You can email us at podcast@albumnerds.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Album Nerds. And please subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast app. And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so via PayPal at albumnerds.com/support.
Thank you once again for listening to the Album Nerds podcast. We'll catch you next time when we revisit and rectify past wrongs.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Catch you next time.
Keep on with the force. Don't stop till you get enough.
Force has got a lot of power, Mickey. That was Mickey Jackson, folks.
The lesser known brother.
It was their mouse. After Ben died, they got a mouse.